Hello, everyone. I am Fabiola from the TaxDome onboarding team, and I'm excited to welcome you to our TaxDome onboarding webinar series. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Fabiola Garcia. I'm part of the onboarding team here at TaxDome, and I am really excited to introduce you to Leonard Cole. He is from Cole CPA Group, part of our Canada client base that we have. So really excited to welcome you today. So welcome, Leonard. Tell us a little bit about you, your business, and whatever else you want to share with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I've been an accountant for just around 20 years now and started out in the financial services area doing insurance investments as well as tax returns, accounting that. Had the opportunity to sell off part of my business and went full accounting about 5 years ago now,
Oh,
and
wow.
made my way through a whole bunch of different CRM type software, from spreadsheets to other software, and I finally came to one that did everything for me. So that's why I'm here.
Great. I'm really happy that you mentioned that because, TaxDome really is an all-in-one and it allows for you to scale your business even more than before, right? So thank you for sharing that. I do want to mention, by the way, we have Leonard here, but if you want to connect with other firms and other, businesses that work with TaxDome, join the community. TaxDome community is great for you to get best practices and ask each other things. Our team is on there as well, but getting these valuable insights from other firms, just like we're going to get from Leonard today, is really great to do. So join that community if you haven't done so. It's already in your portal. All you have to do is go to the link, and we'll go from there, in keeping that communication open. I want to talk about what we're going to discuss today. Because this session really marks the last part of our webinar series, and we'll explore various facets of mastering your workflow. By the end of this series, really, you'll walk away with a comprehensive understanding of your setup. You should have done that in the previous sessions, right, or webinars. You'll have actionable insights and all the tools that you need to elevate your practice. So if you attend all sessions, right, you should be able to get a certification. If you are watching this on demand, you need to take the quiz to get that certification. Also, if you're watching a live, you will soon get an email with a recording link and also a way for you to get that certification quiz completed. And that way you are, officially certified with the onboarding process. We will talk about really briefly, how do you set up a pipeline, or how do you edit that, right? We already went over that before, but I want to do a quick overview. We'll talk about managing work in TaxDome, how we manage tasks and best practices, advanced workflows, right? In this case, Leonard, is amazing when it comes to doing more advanced things. And even as a beginner, because I actually onboarded him when he came over to TaxDome. So it's great to get his feedback. We'll talk about, his experience, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you test your pipeline toward the end. Right. So let's go ahead and get started. How do we edit a pipeline, and how do we get to a pipeline? And we go to templates, and in templates you will see where you can create a pipeline from scratch, right? This is really easy to do. You'll see a blank kind of pipeline, no title. You add your title, we add our stages that we need, and that's it. This is how easy it is to create your pipeline. Now, we also have talked about the marketplace. The marketplace is where you'll come to download some free templates. One of my favorites is the TaxDome tax return. It's a 1040. So I know that we do have a client base all over the world, actually, right? So I know this is 1040, but you can actually use it just as a baseline. You don't have to call it 1040. It can be, for example, for Canada, T1, it could be T2, right? And I believe here, when you created your pipeline, Leonard, you were able to tailor that according to your needs, right?
Yeah, I did that with both the pipelines and the organizers.
There you
I
go.
I took both from the American and converted it over to Canadian terminology. The process is still the same. It's just the terminology changes.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You're still doing kind of like the same general steps, right? But you're
Yes.
absolutely right. There's terminology that's different, verbiage that's different for agreements, and
Yeah.
if you have engagement letters or proposals that need to be signed, obviously that's going to be very, very different.
Yeah, those were specific to Canada and all our wording and laws, but everything else, the questionnaires, the organizers and the steps, it's still, you gather data, you use data, you put it together, you give it back to the client, all that sort of stays the same.
Right, right, exactly. And well, let's take a look. I'm going back to pipelines under templates so I could see all the templates that I have. I'm going to go, I named this one number one just because TaxDome organizes this in alphabetical order and like a chronological order. So if you want a specific order, you can number them. Otherwise, they're going to be in alphabetical order, right? So if you need something to be at the top, you want to number it something like this. If you don't care about that, that's fine. Just name it how you'd like. And here I have my pipeline, right? And this pipeline, we are always able to edit it. So when we click on, the actions that are going to happen, in here, for example, I have that proposal, right? I'm just going to choose a template that I worked on very hard to complete. Leonard, be honest with me. When you created templates, did it take you a little while to create the template? Did it take you a short amount of time?
The templates took a while because I had to figure out where I wanted automatic data in.
Right.
Because yes, you have it at the top that this is say for the 2024 tax year, but then part of the wording down further is we're doing a tax return for your December 31st, 2024. So I had to make sure I went through all the different areas to make sure that any relevant personal data was there, so that I could make it I could send out 600 of them and have them correct for each individual person.
Right. And we'll talk about a little bit of, a new CRM feature bringing in, what your client filled out in
Mm-hmm.
the organizer, bringing it into your CRM. Like
Mm-hmm.
if they updated the address, for example, we can quickly bring that over, right?
Yeah.
So, but in this case, I think the hardest part of setting a TaxDome up, it's just working on those templates, like you said, taking the time, making sure that the questions are right, that it belongs to the right group of clients, right?
Yeah.
Whether maybe it's a business that needs to fill out something, or a proposal that needs to be for an individual, whatever it might be, the templates are going to be important to build out, right? So this is a quick example. I have a proposal that's being sent out, right? And this is the one that I want to send out. I do have new clients and returning clients that I want a specific email to be sent out to them. So this is our condition that I have set up on here, right? Remember, conditions will tailor whatever action this is for only this group of clients. So only my new clients will receive this email. Nobody else will. And if they don't have this, they probably won't receive an email unless they have a returning client, right? Tag. So this is already kind of set up for me so that everybody, number one, receives a proposal and receives, this tailored email. So I'm good with this. But what about the organizer? What if I want to send an organizer? Maybe this needs to be to my new clients, because remember, there's a full form that gets filled out that is, I don't know, like 40 pages long maybe, right? And I have returning clients that might only need to fill out a shorter version. So I can actually do that with the tagging system as well. And I'm sure you have, Leonard, use kind of this tagging. So we'll talk about how
Yeah, I use
complex
tags
you
all over
use
my
them.
pipelines.
Oh, beautiful. I love using the logic of tags,
Yeah.
because it just creates so much, I wouldn't say complexity, but it makes it easy to for things to get automatically assigned to the group of clients that needs to be assigned to, and you don't need to really worry about that anymore because everything's done for you, right?
Well, it gave me the ability to have both individuals, small business, and corporations all in the same pipeline, but getting the specific things just to them that they required. That way, I only have one place to look for all the work that's active and in that's working. So that way, I don't have to worry about, oh, I forgot to go look at what my corporations or stuff do. Everything that's due is in one pipeline.
Right, exactly. Everything is in one. So just like I'm saying, new clients and returning clients, we'll take a look a little bit later on how Leonard has it set up, because I do want everyone to get that other perspective. Like, how do I do what Leonard's talking about, right? Maybe I want to use that, and you can. So, for example, just as a quick demo here, I want my new clients to fill out that full form, like from scratch. I want their address, I want their whole information. But returning clients, I want this template that I made that I only have a few questions, right? And I only want them to be for returning clients because I already have their information. I just want to make sure that if there's any different changes or updates, like address, things like that, that is updated. And I don't need to ask all of the rigorous questions anymore. If I hit save, I'm sending an organizer in this second stage. And I'm sending a full organizer to my new clients, and I'm sending a customized, more narrowed down version of an organizer with maybe only 15 questions versus like the 30 questions in this one, right? So that's how you can tailor. Just want to, we already talked about this in previous sessions, but I want to refresh you because this is important to understand, right? After you kind of master this, and even if you don't use these, you can have just a single organizer. Creating tasks as well are important to understand, right? These are things that are assigned to you and your team. So we'll talk about this in a second as far as how it's assigned and who it belongs to, making sure that that gets to the right person. So I'm going to hit save. You always want to hit save. I can't reiterate that as much as I would want to, because I've noticed that clients make these amazing changes and they do these great things, but they don't hit save. So hit save, everybody. It's going to save you, a headache if you forgot how to add everything else.
Usually, your browser will warn you that you're leaving
That's right.
something unsaved, but not always.
Exactly. Not always. Maybe if you're like, oh, I want to jump somewhere else, I highly suggest you use additional tabs. Open a couple more
Yeah.
tabs on the right, so that you can jump to them. TaxDome is not going to boot you out or anything. You can have multiple sessions within the same browser. So that's a really good practice that I can share with you. All right. So now that we, understand how to add organizers, a proposal, or even just add a task, right? Because we already gone over that. And you learning the basics. It's time to keep an eye on what matters. And, things that matter in a pipeline really are the tasks being assigned to the right person on the team? Do they know what to do? Right? Are your clients getting the right notifications if you're sending an email or you're sending a proposal? Those are the things that you kind of want to take a look at. Now, managing tasks are really important. There's views that I can share, and if you'd like to share your best practice in a second, Leonard. I appreciate your feedback. So if you click on Go to Pipeline, the Go to Pipeline button is going to be your best friend because you get this Kanban view in which you can see generally all of your steps for your pipeline, right? And you will be able to see the active jobs in a job card. So this is nice to view because you can see exactly what, as a visual, where they are. You can always click on tasks and see a list, right? If you click on all, I don't have any assigned to me, but if I click on all, these are all of the tasks that are currently active right now for me and, my team. So in this case here, you can manage tasks this way. And the way you could do that is like opening the task up and see what you need to do. This is one way, right? But the pipeline view, this Kanban view, is also another way because not only are you looking at a single task, if I click on the job here, you will see a list of tasks here that are going to be assigned. Right now it's a little bit blank because we're on stage number 1, but let's see if I can give you another example. Let's do this example here. So notice that we have chats grouped together, if any, proposals, engagement letters grouped together, if any, and then our tasks. This is a great way to manage tasks per job. Inside of the job, there are going to be many tasks that are going to be assigned to different persons in the team, right? So this is what you're going to look at. You can see who is assigned. If there's nobody assigned, you can assign somebody to it, and this is where you can complete your tasks as well. So there's many ways to do one thing in TaxDome, but have you found something that works for you in a better way, Leonard?
I usually use the pipeline view because then that tells that I can easily scroll down and go, oh yeah, I need to work on that one. And I have mine set so the one that was in there first is at the top.
Right.
I like to work off of a first in, first out
Right,
mentality.
exactly. And by
So
by clicking on edit and settings, this is what he's talking about, right? He's talking about getting the newest one on top or the oldest one on top, right?
yeah, I always have the oldest one there so that when I'm looking at it, I can go in and cherry pick if I want.
That's right.
But but mostly I have it so that the one that's been in the stage the longest, because it might remind me then that, oh, I have to follow up with that person because I'm still waiting for information or those kinds of things. And then that way something doesn't get missed or I don't, forget about that person because it's always staring me right at the top.
Right. Absolutely. That's a great tip there. And again, just to demo this for everybody, if you click on settings, this is a sort feature. If you want to track, how many days it's been on that stage, you can toggle on this information here. When you click on save, let's go back to the pipeline view. And well, look at this client has been here for 5 months. Oh my gosh, need to take care of this client. How could it be that they've been there for 5 months, right? So it will tell you 3 days, 1 day, months, years, right? If you haven't really moved that client. In this case, this is a month that it's been here. So that way you can find priority, right? Because remember, the priorities can be changed at any time in here. And if this becomes urgent, I could just save it as urgent and I can see this because it's been here for 5 months. That's
Yeah.
crazy, right? We need to take care of certain clients with more urgency. What if you have like 500 jobs that are active, right? And you do have a couple that you turned into urgent. Um, One of the best practices that I can offer as well is the filtering. The filter, if you want to do something like I want all my urgents to show up and only those for now, then only the urgents will show up and I'll work actively on those, right? And once I'm done, you can click on reset because if you don't reset that you're going to come back to the view and you're going to only see one job when in fact you have 500 jobs that are active, right?
And I also use that when I'm looking for a specific person. Versus, you could easily just go up, search for the client, go to
That's right.
the pipelines tab. But I find I like to stay on this page and actually bookmark this page so I can just come back to it with a quick bookmark instead of having to go through all the prompts on the side. But I use that to find if I'm looking for a specific person. If say somebody calls in and wants an update, I can easily go to see what stage it's at, where it's at, without having to scroll through and try to find them.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. This is probably the best way because, like you mentioned, you can go to the account. If I go to the account itself, it'll open up a new tab, and yes, you can hyper focus on the workflow tab, and it'll kind of show you the same view, but only for that specific client, right? And
Yeah.
it'll show you all the pipelines they're actually involved in, which is great. But if you're actively working just on one pipeline, um, it's better to stay inside of this view and use the filtering.
Yeah.
Um, I had a client once that had 2,000 active jobs in one pipeline. That was amazing to see. So that in that case, also the filter is quite important to narrow
I've
down.
got 600 and some
Oh,
in one of them because we're just starting our season right now. So
that's right. Yeah, I can't wait to kind of see that if you don't mind sharing that. That's amazing. I love to see, active jobs on a live client's account. Obviously, this is my test account, and you
yeah,
can see this poor client has been here for 5 months. He's probably going to fire me or something, right? But seeing live jobs is something that I want all clients to see, everybody that's watching. So I'm excited to kind of explore that. All right. So you know, aside from this, that we'll keep exploring in a little bit, there's ways to communicate with the team internally, right? Uh, because we don't have yet an active team chat, you notice that you probably see that on mine. We do have that coming up soon. It's in beta testing, and it might be out already if you're watching this as a recording, but as a workaround, and if you want to keep documents also in one place, you can create an account. And I'll go here to my accounts. And let's say this test 123 here. I can probably maybe even rename this account and, call it my firm.
hmm
And this firm here is only for you and your team. So the documents here can be reorganized so that they only are used for you and your team. Maybe you want to have your teammates' names in here, and that's their personal folder where they keep track of, certain documents. And there is communication in here. So the communication, you can have a chat and create a chat here and keep the chat internal to you and the team, right? So for example, let me just create a really quick chat here. I'm pretending like I sent something to the client, but notice that there's this toggle here that says internal. This is where you can actually tag each other um, and have an internal conversation where your client is not going to be able to see that. Obviously, this is a test account. I don't really care if the client sees it or not because this is strictly internal. For now, you can start using this as an internal chat to quickly, get information from each other, have a conversation if you're not maybe in the same office right away. But soon we'll have a team chat here that will make this even easier. But I like this because you can use this to save internal documents and create kind of like um, a variation of internal stuff that only you and your team need to access, right? Nobody really else needs to access this,
and if you
but your
do
team.
do it, and if you do it on a specific client, it could be a question specific to that client that you want. If somebody else is bringing in the documents and entering that stuff, and the client has told them something, they can easily add it there so that whoever's working on the file can know that information without having to have it in a separate location, because they're in here, the chat's going to show up that it belongs to that job, and it's easy for them to then just get that information.
Right, exactly. I think this kind of, workaround, I call it workaround because everything is based off of accounts. When you have an account, you'll automatically have a folder that's visible, and that's how your team can manage individual accounts. But this can turn into something a little bit more dynamic, right? That functions for internal use only. So please take advantage of this. You can create as many internal accounts as you wish. Obviously, you don't want to have too many and confuse the team, but having something like this can be something that might be useful to you. All right. So, you know, now that we know how to, communicate internally, have internal documents and, kind of manage clients so they don't fall through the cracks in a pipeline. And let me go back to the pipeline view. Let me open this up. We want to make sure that if you do have a big team, I know right now, Leonard, you have a small team, but eventually you probably want to track some of the productivity in the team. So one of the nice things that we have is time tracking here up at the top, right? And we also have the budgeting, right? If you allow the budgeting here to be, well, this should only take 5 hours from beginning to end, um, you know, and you want to start tracking time, a timer will automatically pop up and you start working on this return. And then if you want to pause this, you can. If you want to finish this, you can. And it'll create a time entry for you in which you can create like a rate in which you can charge your client. But sometimes maybe you only want to know from your team member, whoever it was working on this, how long they spent on this, right? If they work 40 hours a week, how long did they spend on this, and is the time being distributed correctly? So these are additional things that you can use to track productivity for your team, right? This again is useful for bigger teams, but I mean you can also use this for your smaller teams if you want to keep track, for example, of something that you're going to charge your client, because you can charge your client according to time entries. This is something called work in progress, and this is in the billing section. So if you have 5 time entries, you can just bill your client from there. For example, on a, maybe bookkeeping example, that you work certain hours on a bookkeeping service, that's where I kind of would suggest it. But let me know, Leonard, have you used the time entries before, or have you gotten
I
familiar?
don't know by time. I bill by the job. We're a flat
Flat
price
rate? Gotcha.
flat rate firm. So I still have people keep track of the time, but we don't use it for
Not
billing
for billing.
purposes. We use it to make sure that we are, that people are working, which is mostly myself and the one other employee at the moment, are working efficiently, but not for billing purposes.
Right, exactly. For smaller teams, I think it might not be as utilized, but it's nice that you have these features here
Oh,
for when
absolutely.
your team grows, right? Which hopefully your team does grow, because in that case, when we go to our reporting section and we go to our dashboards, there's some pre-made reports on here. Our AI can generate reports, obviously, but some of these dashboards that are pre-made by TaxDome help you out in reviewing that time utilization. How long did my team members spend on certain jobs, right? I might not have a lot of data on here for you. Usually this data, after, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, you'll have a lot of data here for the system to report. And a lot of you that are starting out with TaxDome probably won't have too much data on here, but after a couple of weeks or months, you will have this populated so you can see the time utilization, how long, your team members have been working on something, how, let's give you a little bit more. The capacity, the capacity planning, it's nice because, again, if you're allotting a certain amount of hours and you're working on, you know, certain amount of jobs, we don't want to overwork our team members, right? Or even overwork yourself. And you can start keeping track of that. I think it is ideal when you start getting more team members in here. But generally, the reporting feature is really great to do that. Not only for that kind of tracking, but for revenue, right? If you want to start understanding, what was my revenue last month, according to tags, maybe that's something that you can create, utilizing the reporting and utilizing the AI feature as well. All right, so let me pause here. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a second, and I'm going to go to do some Q&A. All right, so I want to talk about some questions that our audience might have, because it's really common to have a lot of doubts, especially because we talked about quite a bit of things that you should already be familiar with, but it's easy to get, kind of sidetracked into understanding them anyway. So first question, how do I handle extensions for my tasks or jobs? So if I'm understanding this question correctly, extensions may be like, there's a due date and there was an extension filed, at least in the United States, you can
Yeah.
continue something a little bit further down the year, right, in a couple of months. And I'm sure that's kind of something similar that happens in Canada, correct?
No, we don't get
You
extensions.
don't get extensions?
No.
Oh, there you go. So that's nice. You don't have, your clients have to just do it now. They have to get stuff completed. So
Different due dates based on what type it's done, but there is no extensions.
there you go. Well, that's probably would be nice for the US markets, because I'm sure it does become a little bit of a headache to do extensions, right? I've worked with clients that mentioned to me that they have a lot of extensions yearly, and they actually automatically put clients on extension because of whatever, if whatever thing happens and they didn't put their client on an extension, then a lot of trouble comes up. So I also have, on the other hand, clients that say, oh, I don't do extensions. My clients is just, or we do it or we don't do it, right? So I think it's part of how you manage your business. But there's one thing that you can do. You can include a stage for extensions, or you can create a whole pipeline called extensions. Or number three, you can use a feature that is called job statuses. This is actually relatively new. And wherever the client is sitting on the stage, you change the status of the job to extension, and it'll just sit there until you change it, or until you you create a trigger to change it. So we'll talk about that as well, because that's a little bit more advanced, features. So we'll talk about that shortly. So there's many ways you can do that kind of, management for extensions. Let's go to the next question. Do I need to use TaxDome organizers instead of my tax softwares? It's up to you, right? I've had clients that use, for the time being, their tax softwares organizers, and some completely 100% went over to TaxDome. Some said, I want to use TaxDome only for new clients, and my old clients, I'm not going to send them organizers. I'll keep them where they were before. So organizers, what do you think about that, Leonard? Is
I
that
put
something that
everything into TaxDome. I wanted one portal, one location. My billings there, my organizers are there, forms are there. questions are there. That way they only have one place to look.
That is exactly what I would suggest. Now, the reason why some clients would say, well, I don't want to hassle my clients into filling out this, form that they've already filled out. Yes, but you only have to do this once. It's a kind of a transitionary
Mm-hmm.
task that you have to do. And yes, maybe your clients will have to fill it out again from scratch. However, remember, TaxDome has that autofill feature. So as long as you send that organizer next year, the same template, not a copy of it, not a different template completely, but the same template that you can keep updating. The autofill feature will work its magic, which means it'll automatically fill out on your client's behalf every single time. So it's just kind of like that. Do I want to give my clients that hassle of filling in that out? Well, sometimes it's good because you might have some outdated information
Oh,
for that
absolutely.
client, right?
And that's
And
why I tell my clients every year. They say, "Well, why do I need to fill it out again?" It says, "Because I don't know if you have another child. I don't know if you have you've moved. I don't know if you've changed your email address, your phone number, got rid of your landline and only have a cell. I don't know that information unless you tell me." And most people aren't thinking when they make a major change, I have to phone my accountant and tell them.
exactly, it's not something that's a
They're not
priority
high
in
on
their
the
head.
priority list that way. So,
Yes, exactly. So again, to answer that question, it's up to you. Ideally, this feature is an amazing feature at Taxon. We highly suggest you do transition over to fully utilizing TaxDome for the organizers. But again, that's your decision, right? All right. So next question. My team struggles to follow up on pending tasks. What's your recommendation for improving that process? I guess I kind of want to ask you this, Leonard, because you, as working with live clients, are having to deal with tasks yourself. Is there a little bit of a recommendation that you can provide for us?
well, I just have it so that all my tasks are in the one location so that when I come in the morning, I look at my inbox plus to see if there's anything new that came in. And then I go to the screen that shows the current tasks that are assigned to me. And as well, now granted, most of them are assigned to me, but I do have another employee. So I also look at not only my tasks, but everybody's tasks
Right.
just to make sure that something isn't getting left behind, or if it's still there and it's still there tomorrow and the next day and the next day, well, maybe there's a reason for that, but maybe I should make sure that they're just not phoning the person because they don't want to talk to the person, or they're scared to talk to the person because the person's going to be mad or angry. Because no matter what, we have really no control over the response or what the answer is going to be. But a lot of people like to get mad at the middleman.
That's true.
So if you know their response is going to be angry, sometimes people avoid talking. That's why I like to look at everybody's stuff as well.
Yeah, that's a great part about, looking at the tasks in TaxDome. Not only can you hyper focus on yours, but for the rest of the team, because they might not be on top of some things, or a hiccup down the road. You might have updated a task, and before you updated it, a client went through that stage and it just didn't get assigned to anybody.
Yeah.
That can happen. So you'll catch something that says unassigned. And if nobody received a notification for it, it's just going to be hanging out there, right? And nobody's going to catch it. So that's actually essential part of the testing that needs to be done when you create a pipeline.
Yeah.
Is did it get assigned to the right person as I want it to, right? Because you as the firm owner are, the master of how you want your process to be.
Yeah.
So if it's not happening how you want it to be, that's where we need to make the corrections, right?
And I also made a pipeline that was just either CRA in Canada's case, or the IRS, if they've asked a question of a client, or if the client has asked a question, I made a task job and a pipeline just for those, so that when it comes in, it creates a task for it that's assigned to whoever is assigned to that person's account. And that way it automatically, any questions that come in are there, so that they don't get, because I could have 500 sheets of paper on my desk. I don't have to look for the one that's there. It's automatically in another pipeline. All the questions that do come in.
Right.
That aren't related to an existing job that's on the go.
Yeah. Thank you for suggesting that. It's a good idea, having a separate pipeline for that. And remember, if you do have separate pipelines that still have to do with each other, you can always move jobs from one pipeline to another. That's really, really easy to do. So don't think that you're stuck, that you created a job in one pipeline and you're like, they should be going to a different pipeline soon. You can really, really easily do that. And it's, going to the Kanban view, and that's probably the easiest way, but you can still change that in other views. And
that's the way I do it. I found that was the easiest.
Yeah, it is. It is the easiest. All right. And let's see. Let's look at the last question. Why would I create reports instead of just exporting the list of items from any page directly? So that question is saying something like, let's stick to tasks, for example. Right now, that's what we're talking about. You go to your task, you go to workflow, you click on tasks, and you can export that whole list. And then you can just use Excel to kind of generate, a report maybe. But that's a lot of work. I wouldn't want you to do that when TaxDome can generate the reports for you. You can quickly go to the reporting section, and you can even type into the AI, how many jobs were active for my team member John last week, or how many jobs were active with the tag new customer or business or whatever. And that way you can start learning, and the AI can start learning as well what you are interested in generating, right? So it's kind of like, buy Excel. I don't want to struggle. I just want an AI to give me what I want. So that's a really nice thing and feature to kind of play around with.
Yeah, I want as least amount of work as possible to have to do.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. That's ideal, right? All right. So I want to talk about advanced workflow functions now. So let's review some of these functions, right? One of the newest ones is role-based automation. So let's take a look at how that looks. All right, so I'm going into my client view, and I'm going to open an account here. If I click on info, you will see this section called account roles. Okay, so account roles is something that you can set up for your team. So notice that there's already some account roles here. I created these. Okay, you can have these be named whatever you'd like. But in this section, this is where you'd say, well, my admin is this person, or maybe I don't have an admin per se. I need to have a preparer and a reviewer. This is my preparer, and the final reviewers are these two individuals, right? You can have two people on here or just one. So by having these roles, I can say, task on stage 3, have it go to the preparer, whoever that might be. It can be Catherine in my case, or it can be Regina. Each case might be different. So this is something that ideally will help out with distributing the tasks more evenly, and also maybe eliminating some tags that you might have created, like more dynamic tags. But even the tagging system is really great to use, even if you don't use account roles. So let me show you how to create these. You're going to go to, let's see, going to go to settings, team and plans, and then you're going to hit roles. When you click on roles, you can add more roles here and call them whatever you want here. Let's see. I couldn't think of anything better. Emailer. Maybe I have somebody in the team that, shoots out to emails, or they need to be doing something, but you can have an admin person that works on that account. You can have a preparer, a reviewer, right? If you don't want this because, whoops, emailer, I don't know what that is, I'm going to delete that. You can, and you can change the spelling or of whatever this is. This roles is for you to internally help you, especially for bigger teams, right? I
Mhm.
think if you have two or more licenses, because there's a lot of solo firms out there with just one license, and this might not even apply to you, but if you do have two or more licenses, this might be ideal for
But
certain tasks.
but you could set it up even if you are a solo firm,
Oh yeah,
because if you know you're going to bring somebody on in the future, because then you don't have to revamp all of your workflows at that time. When I set up my workflows, this didn't exist. So I've now, after this tax, I'm not changing anything during tax season, but after this
right.
tax season, I'm going to now, some of my workflow stuff will change to use roles versus tags.
Perfect. And, you know, that's a good example because some clients, like yourself, already have this set up and, already have all their clients in. One of the things that you could do um, to update everybody on here is to import a two-column, file. Column A is going to be the account name, and column B is going to be the role. Okay, so the role can be named according to your role. So one can be admin, that can be one column, the admin. Another column can be the preparer, and another column can be, something else. And you can have two or three columns and then add your team member's name in there and then import them. So everybody in your CRM is updated. Right now, we don't have a way to like mass change it, kind of like mass updating tags and things like that that we already have a feature on. Most likely in the future we'll have that going on, but it's really easy to do with an import. Again, you only need your account name, and a nice way to do that is exporting this. So if you want to export, your accounts, you can click on this button here, and you will get exported a list of clients where you can delete everybody and then just import your roles. Again, you'll have column A, and column B can be admin. Column C can be preparer. Column um, column XYZ can be whatever you'd like according to the roles. Just make sure that they're spelled exactly how you set up the roles, and that's how you can do it in bulk. So that might be a way you would want to update yours, Leonard, to kind of get rid of some of the tagging later on after tax season. Okay, so how does that work? Like, I already did this, right? I already created these roles. So how is this going to work? Well, if I take a look at, my pipelines, let's take a look at this pipeline. I have my first task here on stage 3, and it's called in prep, right? So I want to take a look at, this here. Well, first of all, before I open this task, I have assigned task to job assignee. Um, the job assignee is the person that you selected when you created the job. That person needs to take care of this from beginning to end. Um, and if that person doesn't need to take care of this, maybe they only need to take care of I don't know, the invoicing, you would toggle this off, and you want to make sure that this task goes to the preparer, right? Whoever that might be. So let me go ahead and open a new tab. And I clicked on that link just so it could take me to the template section. I'm not really going to create one. So let's take a look at that specific. It's called 1040 Prepare. Here it is. And where it says assignee, right? I'm going to click on roles. And who needs to complete this? The admin, the preparer, the reviewer? Well, obviously, this is part of the preparing process. So whoever is a preparer needs to be the one to take care of this task. So again, it doesn't matter who it is. It might be a different person for each account, but the preparer is the one that needs to work on this. Again, this is helpful for big teams or even small teams, because to Leonard's point, he might grow his team, and he might have 2, 3 more team members by the end of the year. Who knows, right? And this is going to be ideal to, not remember everybody who needs to be assigned. They're predetermined per account. So he needs to determine when he opens a new account, who's going to be the preparer, who's going to be the admin, or who's going to be, the reviewer. So in this case, I'll do save and exit. And let's see, let me go back to the pipeline. So we know that this needs to be for the preparer. I'm going to toggle this off because the job assignee is not the one to do this. It's the preparer. And I'm just going to hit save, and I'll hit save again. That's how you would manage roles, right? And again, it can be anybody in the team that has that role, because, different clients probably will belong to different team members, or you have different team members that really hyper focus on certain roles, like the examples that we just created. So looking at this, is this something that is kind of rubbing you the right way, Leonard? Is this something that's going to help you out to?
Oh yeah, it'll get rid of quite a few tags and quite a bit more in the stage condition, not stage, but the automations. Because right now I have to, if it's got this tag, you have to assign this person. If it's got this tag, you have to assign this person. If it's got this tag, you have to assign this. It'll get rid of all of that.
Right, right, exactly. And let me show you what Leonard's talking about. In my manager review, I have something similar here. Okay, right? So I'm saying here, once it hits a stage, if the account has the tag Regina, she will get this task. But if the tag says Arissa, then Arissa will get this. But Arissa no longer works with me anymore. So that's when it becomes an issue, right? And this is where I have to say, well, I need to update that, and I'm going to have to update that on the pipeline. But if I had the roles, I'd only need to go to the account and change the role, and I don't need to really worry about having these multiple tasks that are essentially the same thing. They just go to different individuals, right?
Yeah, because it's much easier to change that on the individual clients than it is to go through, because you might have a whole bunch of tasks created for Arissa. If she leaves, then you got to figure out, well, which tasks are assigned to her already, and then go in and find all them to change. Where if it's just set up for change on the client, when that is populated, boom, it just goes to the right person.
Right, exactly. All right, well, I'm going to click save on here. And I want to address really quickly, that extension question that we had earlier, because notice that we have these extensions on here. You could have stages that say needs extension, right? For example, in this case, we'll move it just for demo here. This client needs an extension. right? But they might be sitting in the in prep section already. They might be sitting here, and you already know that they need an extension, or you already know that they're missing some stuff, right? So what you can do is utilize these statuses. So there's already an extension like pre-made template in here, but you can utilize as whatever you'd like. So if I click on extension and then hit save and exit, it'll turn this into a different tone, like a kind of like a orangey color, right? Which is different from the rest of the jobs that you have. And it'll give you the title of whatever you named this, right? So this can potentially help you get rid of some of these stages, right? I mean, you might not need these stages because you can use this job status. You can say something like, well, if I do have maybe a missing info, um, status, I want something to automatically be issued. Maybe I want a task to be issued to somebody in the team, right? You can create it on the fly now, and it's going to be part of this. Not, it doesn't trigger anything down here that is already active. So think of this as a smaller pipeline on top of a pipeline, kind of, right? So when, let's say I have a task here that says, client request, right? Once you send this client request, because maybe we're missing a document, right? And we want them to upload their document, whatever it might be. We'll send it here. And once this client actually submits that missing document, this will turn into an active status again. And then we'll go toward the normal steps that we need to go to, right? So think about this for, future use. You can not only create these on the fly, but let me exit and then click on edit. If you go to job statuses here, you can create automations that are automatically triggered. So if I want to automatically create a task here for my team that says, hey, send a client request, and assign it to whoever is the job assignee. If not, if the client request has a role-based automation, then you don't have to toggle this on. I'll hit save, and now we have that template in which, let's see, let's turn this into active now. And I'll link this. Now, I am missing information. I know that now. And a task is going to be created. And here it's going to be automatically issued, right? So when this task is completed,
Mm-hmm.
here we go, and I hit save, then this will turn back into an active status. It's kind of like a side task on top of the job, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So this might be, nice to utilize in certain scenarios. Have you used the job statuses or kind of like browse around them, Peter?
I've started to use them. They're not in my pipeline yet, as when I created the pipelines, and I wasn't about to start changing things again just before the busy time. But it's going to get rid of a couple stages of my pipeline once this, once I'm through tax season. I will then create, or I'm going to revamp. I've got notes on what I want to revamp. And this will be part of it, because then I don't have to move it to a missing documents
That's
stage.
right.
It can just sit in still waiting, and then I don't have to worry about, oh, why is this one still here? Oh, it's missing documents. Because right now I have to move it to a separate if I'm in prep and I'm missing something, I move it to missing documents, and then it's in post prep, and then those kinds of things where I don't have to then do that. I can have fewer stages throughout the whole process.
Right, exactly. In this case, we have this nice status. Everybody in the team can
Yeah,
see this is what's going on.
yeah,
Remember, aside from this whole status, you can always leave description notes, right?
yeah.
Um, these description notes, if you activated this view, you can see these notes right in here as well,
Hmm.
right? If you don't see them, again, you can click on Edit, Settings, and these are the descriptions on here that you want to play around with. If
Yeah,
I go back to the pipeline, I can see, oh, they need this document, right?
yeah,
Now I know what's going on. So I'll open it up and see that there's a task that needs to be completed. And somebody in the team needs to send that request, right?
yeah.
Because there's something that's missing, a very, very specific thing that's missing. And remember, adding these things here will automatically link them to this job. You don't need to do anything else like add to link to job.
I know
Linking to
that's where
job is for you already in here.
I do. If you click on the new there, that's where I'll add a client request, or I will add an invoice when it's done, or if I want to link another job to it or another task that needs to be done that came across that way. It just saves time.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. You put it all in one place. And the best thing about this, like let's say that you're done with the whole job. Really what happens here is that you have a whole history of everything that you did for your client. And you can store it for months, years even, and you can come back and generate reports upon some of these jobs. And it's really nice to see what you did with your client, right? And what they signed, what they didn't sign, what they completed. So essentially, really, TaxDome pipelines will never, ever, ever allow for any of your clients to fall through the cracks because you'll see what's happening with them at every moment, right?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So this is something that I highly suggest everybody kind of focus on creating these um, statuses, right?
Mhm.
You can create new statuses here and manipulate those actions under the settings section that I saw earlier. Don't have to stick with these, okay? You don't have to stick with these because they're only templates. I always tell my clients, please make up as many, statuses as you'd like, because I'm sure that each firm has their own verbiage that they use internally about, what's going on with each account, right? It can be a unique situation for every client. All right, so I'm going to pause here and I'm going to just a little bit of Q&A here. So let's answer a few questions, and then from here we'll start talking about, you can share your screen, Leonard, in a little bit and show us your best practices here. But, question number one, how long does it take to set up my team roles for all of my clients? Well, I showed earlier, takes a couple seconds to just create those roles. But if you're going to import them for everybody, it'll take a few minutes on an Excel sheet, creating a CSV file and kind of assigning, if you have 1,000 clients or if you have 100 clients, it just would depend on that specific number that you need to sit and
Yeah.
assign. That's pretty much it. I always determine how long something's going to take like this according to the number of clients that you have. So, even just setting up that CSV file, I've had clients take a whole month to set up a CSV file because they have, I don't know, 3,000 clients. I've had clients that in one day have a CSV file because they only have 60 clients. So
Well,
it just depends.
if they have one manager, they can just easily put manager down the side. They have one
Yes.
admin, but if they have 3 admins, 5 preparers, 3 managers, you got to figure out for each client which name needs to go there. That will take longer.
Yes, exactly. So,
For
uh,
myself, it's going to be fairly quick because I only have two names I have to deal with. But if you've got five or six people that, and you have to determine, okay, well, who looks after this client? It might take a little bit longer then.
yes, exactly. Exactly. All right. So next question, if there are multiple people set as roles for a client, will they get assigned to the task for that client? Yes. Earlier, I showed you that there can be two team members assigned as reviewers, for example. And maybe I only do that for certain accounts because I need that double triple check of that final review, and I need a second person. So if I add two people as a reviewer for an account and I assign something, those two will get assigned that same task. And it's just a matter of determining if that's something that you want to do. I always suggest only have one task per person in the team because it can get confusing. If I create a task for me and Leonard, that task can say something like bring donuts to the office, right? Who's going to do it? Is it me or Leonard? Right? I
Or
don't
we
know.
get twice as many. One of the
Yeah, exactly. Or both of us are going to bring them. So if I just, remove my name and make sure that it always goes to Leonard, he's the one that's going to bring donuts, or he's the one that's going to review on stage 8 every single time, then my suggestion is to keep just one person to do that. But otherwise, just know that two people can get assigned the same task. You just need to determine who's the one that needs to complete it. Is it better to use job statuses instead of having separate stages where I can place my clients until I can move them ahead in the process? So yeah, that's something that, we talked about earlier. Job statuses can definitely help you get rid of certain stages that you might not need. Maybe you do need them after all, and you only need the job statuses to highlight something different in the process of your pipeline, right? It can be something completely different in a payrolling pipeline. The statuses can be completely different from a tax return pipeline. So, like I mentioned, be creative because they don't have to necessarily just be a missing info. They don't have to be an extension or things like that. It can be many, many different things. Remember, TaxDome is just a big template so that you can utilize its features to best fit your needs as a business, right? Which is a really neat thing that you can do with TaxDome. The best way to integrate the time budgeting feature into invoicing. Um, Remember, if you create a time um, sequence in which, today I wanted to record that I spent 2 hours on something, and then tomorrow with the same client, I spend maybe 30 minutes. And then on, Monday, I'm going to spend, I don't know, another hour. Um, those three time entries, you can select them and directly bill your client. Um, if you work that way, I know Leonard, you mentioned that you bill like as a one-time fee, not necessarily with that, but if you do happen to be like charging for by hour for certain services, um, it's going to be really nice to just say, yeah, all of these time entries, I'm just going to bill them. That's how I bill my clients, and that's how do business
for sure.
this certain feature. So it's really easy to do. You will go to billing. It's called a WIP, work in progress. All of your time entries will be grouped together, and then there's literally a button that says invoice client, and all of the time entries will be invoiced to your client. So that's a really nice feature to use with the time budgeting. All right, perfect. So if you don't mind here, Leonard, kind of showing your screen, and we can talk about your process. We can talk about, your pipeline and showcasing how you've worked on your pipeline. little bit of your experience of, using TaxDome and
Mhm.
some of the recommendations that you might have for our viewers.
Okay, so what I did was I took the 1040 and then had to convert it to Canadian. Is basically what I did. So I took
Right.
most of the stages are still the same, but then what I did was I'd created, one for individuals, one for corporations. And then I thought,
Right.
well, that's going to be a lot of flipping between, you know, different pipelines when the way I work, and people are all different, but the way I work is I want to see everything that needs to be done, and then I'll work on a specific person. So what I did was I then incorporated, tags. So I have a tag for a corporation. I have a tag for an individual. I have a tag for a small business owner. I also have a tag for the spouse of a small business owner because their deadline is different than a regular individual. So
Hmm.
I just made all those different tags so that I could automate more. Like in the renewal planning is mostly just for corporations because I have to set, oh, well, what's my rate going to be this year, all that. Most people start off in the welcome emails. So, and I update client facing job statuses so that if when they log into their portal, they see the status that I've given
Right.
so that, it saves a lot of phone calls. Where am I at? What's going on? Why aren't you done yet? Those ones. So what I do is I have there's 7 different automations in this welcome email stage. I have, well, if they're a corporation, they get my corporation year-end letter. If they're a T1 client, which is an individual or sole proprietor, because at this stage I don't care which one they are. They're just an individual, and they're a returning client, they get this email. If they also get the engagement letter for the year, then I create a task for who's ever looking after that. I create a task for when we receive the engagement letter. Mostly that's just so that we can make sure we have it. Then, if they're a new client and a T1, they get a different letter. And then at the bottom here, this is what I am going to change based on role-based stuff versus this. I'm going to say if they've got an admin with the initials BC, assign Britta, basically, is how I've done it. Again, this will change because then that way, because right now if I had 2 different admins, I'd have to, well, if it's got this admin, tag this person. If it's got that admin, tag a different person. The
Right.
role-based stuff will change that. So that's what I'm going to do. Then once we have confirmed that we have the proper signed engagement letter, it's going to automatically move to the next stage, which is waiting for the organizer. I have to move this over here. And then what's going to happen is we're going to apply the default folder template. That gets me my new year put in to the docs section. Once they've signed the engagement letter, I create the organizer based on whether they're a corporation or an individual, and I send them a message as to how to complete the organizer. Again, I'm going to send the organizer to everybody. New, old, doesn't matter to me, because in my organizer, I have you changed your address, yes or no? If they select yes, it pops up to give me the new address. If they select no, they don't have to worry about that. So I have all those. I do collect their name, their address, phone number, email every year, mostly just because I want to make sure we have it correct.
Right. The most updated.
Yeah. And then I have multiple different types of, and I can show you this later, but I have multiple questions like, did you move? Do you have this? Do you have this? Which then ticks off other sections of the organizer. One of the strong features of why I came over to TaxDome from others was because I was using, DocuSign for signing. I was using Adobe for some signing. I was using, Microsoft Forms or Google Forms to do the organizer. I was, if they uploaded documents, it was to a different place. So I wanted one place where when I start working on a file, I can click open the item on the portal, and I can see, oh, there's the organizer. I can click on it, look at it. Oh, there's the question I asked. I can look at it. I just wanted to make it as easy as possible for myself and for any future employees that I do have, that everything they need to do a job is in one spot. I don't want to have to look at 12 different places to find that information.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And especially like you mentioned earlier, if you have 600 active jobs,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
why would you want to be,
Yeah.
struggling with all of these different softwares where
Oh,
everything
absolutely.
can be
You know,
centralized?
and then once, and we've updated the client facing status to waiting for information. So if they log into their portal, they're going to see, oh, they're waiting for something from me.
Yeah.
So then after they've completed the organizer, it goes over to pre-prep. This is where another, I work on a queue basis. So it's basically, it's in the queue. So, what happens here, then we've got, task is returned for my admin to prepare the return for the preparer. What they do is, they scan all the documents, they enter the
Right.
medical, they enter the donations, the data entry heavy stuff, basically. Or if it's a corporation, then the corporate year end, a new task is created. And then again, because of this, we update the job assignee to the person that's going to be doing it. Again,
Right.
something that's going to change. Once that's done, and we confirm that all the information, or what we think is all the information, is there, if they've let us know that in this section, when they do the queue, that they're going to be dropping information off and not just uploading it, then what happens is we tag it with paper. We make it for waiting for paper drop off. This is a task or a section that I will probably create a status for, so that it can still stay in pre-prep, but we know, oh, we're waiting for something to be dropped off, because they might upload, a spreadsheet and some documents, but then they've got a whole bunch of receipts, but they don't want to take the time to scan or take pictures. So we might get some of it by paper, some of it by drop off. So if we figure out that, oh, they've uploaded some, but they've also told us they're dropping something off, we can quickly tag it with, or change the status to waiting, so that we know why it's there. Then
Right.
once we know we have everything, it goes to in the queue. And this is where there's no automatic out of in the queue. The person that takes on the job of doing the return will automatically push it into preparation. That way, when it's sitting in the queue, it says it's in the queue on the client status.
That makes sense. And that way you know that, all right, we're waiting for just those to be moved to where they belong, right?
So once it's in the queue, the preparer can look, oh, this is the top one of the queue. They just drag it over to preparation.
Nice.
Then what happens is the client's facing status changes to in progress. Task is either created for T1s or corporations. They get sent a message based on whether it's a corporation or a T1. Now, T1s is individuals, for those of you.
Yeah, kind of like 1040, 1040.
1040,
Yep.
same thing. They get sent a letter that, oh, you've come out of the queue. We're now preparing your tax return. So they get a message, plus the status changes to in preparation. And then it's, again, here, it's assigned to the assignee, which again, we're going to change to use the role-based versus having all these tags, because that way if I have 6 preparers, I don't have to have 6 different automations here. We can just have the one being assigned the tag to whoever's sitting in that job.
Right. And even if you decide not to use the role base, doing what you just did here is absolutely perfect as well.
Oh,
If you
it
have
works. It works perfect.
Yeah, if you have 2 team members and you wanted to say, if my account has this tag, then it should be for Leonard, or it should be for, Fab, so
And
that
right
works
now,
as
that's
well.
all it's doing is there's 2 of us. It's either assigned to one or the other.
Right.
So, But when I set mine up, I was trying to make it as generic as possible
Right.
in the event that I bring on more staff, which is my plan. If you don't plan on doing that, you might just do this is good, don't worry about it.
Right. Exactly.
Then, as we're going through it, inevitably there's something missing. Even if we've done all the pre-work, oh, you had something last year, you don't have this year. We have to confirm whether you're going to have it again. Or later on down the road, they say, oh, I've got this. So right now, the preparer will tag it as a missing doc, complete the preparation. It'll throw it over into missing information, because this stage is only going to happen if we've tagged it with missing docs.
Right. Yeah, that's the stage condition, right? Just
Yeah.
like you did the paper. The whole stage is designated for that tag, right?
Yeah, they're
So
not going to see it if they don't have that
exactly.
missing doc. So basically, they're going to get sent a message that they're missing something. The status is going to change again on their site to waiting for information. I'm going to create a task, chase the client for the missing information, and it's going to be assigned. Now, what happens is in this stage here, if something is missing, they will pull up the client, add a request, and when it goes to the missing information, they'll get notified again that they can just answer the request that's done.
Right. Do you send the client request in that stage, in missing information stage?
Well, usually what I'll do is I'll do it here in the preparation stage,
Okay.
and then I'll tag it to missing documents, and then basically they'll get the notification that we want it here, and then they'll get a message saying we're missing something. Because I have some clients that I don't know if they just sit waiting for stuff, but
That's
the
right.
second I do something, so if I send this and send them the message we're missing information, but I haven't actually done the request yet, sometimes I'll get a message, well, what do you need? That's
Mm-hmm.
why I like to do it in the preparation, so that when they get sent the message that they're missing something, it's already there for them.
Yeah, yeah. And that message is kind of like, hey, I just sent you what you're missing.
Yeah.
Take a look at that. So
And
yeah,
then, oh, sorry. And then this one here updates it to so that the administrator can chase the client for the information. And in
right.
all of these tasks, I've set due dates for everything as well in the actual creation of the task. Then once the client has it, the administrator will click off that the chasing the client for missing information is done. That will move it over here to, again, this in prep post missing information. Again, must have the missing docs tag. We'll update the client facing status to in progress. We'll remove the missing docs tag, because we can add or remove tags based on the as an automation. We'll get a new task, prep post missing information, and then again updated back to the preparer.
Right.
Now these two sections here will basically, I'm going to make them disappear and put that into just the preparation stage. If we're already in preparation, that we'll just have
Status.
a status that says we're missing something, and then the minute they update it, it'll just go back to not missed, and again it'll be at the top.
Yeah.
Therefore, the oldest stuff, we'll just start working on it again, basically.
Yeah, that's a smart way to use the statuses. It just
Yes,
helps you make this, a little bit cleaner.
because then I'm not looking at this column and this column to see what could be worked on,
Right, right,
and
exactly.
know which one is the oldest one in the queue, because because they're both at the top doesn't mean that this one here is older than this one.
Right. Yep.
It could be just that we know there's missing information. Like, everybody drops stuff off, but they know they're missing something when they drop it off. We can tag it missing information right away.
Yes, and it'll be highlighted for you, so
Yeah.
it's even nicer to see the job highlighted a certain
Yes.
way. that differentiates it from the
Yeah.
rest, right? So yeah, that's a good, although you're going to get rid of these, this is a great way of utilizing
Yeah.
tags, right? For those of you that are like still scratching your head about how to use tags, because it can be a complex concept to wrap your head around. It's really not. It's kind of just like, do this if this tag is on it. I want a very specific thing to happen when it has a particular tag, right? So really, I think going back to the very first or second webinar, it's critical to set up tags at the beginning. And even after you imported your clients, it's important to add these tags, especially if you want to have very specific actions to happen, right? Like, um, the tag here in purple, I think it says
Corporate.
corporation, right?
Yeah.
Um, you want to make sure that all of your corporation accounts are tagged
Oh,
properly so that when they do go through this pipeline, everything is beautifully assigned how
and
it should
that's
be.
one of the things you told me when we were doing it, because I was like, no, I want to import now. You said, no, wait a minute, just calm down. And you basically said, try to think of all the tags you're ever going to need and go through, make sure that your individuals are tagged, make sure that your corporations are tagged, make sure that, anything that you want or you think you want in a tag or in a pipeline, do that before you import, because it's much easier to just import everything then than to try to individually tag stuff later, which is true because I've added tags later that I've had to go then. And yes, you can just select everybody and add a tag, but you have to select everybody, then untag the ones you don't want, or vice versa. And it's a lot more work that way. So if
Yeah.
you haven't done that yet, then definitely try to get all the tags first.
Right. And even if you already imported everybody, remember there's a nice way to do bulk tags in bulk. But sometimes it's nicer to do it in the Excel sheet itself, because you can go account by account and figure out what specific tags you want. You can always re-import your clients, not a big
Yes.
deal. Delete everything and then start from scratch. It's always going to be something that you can do. So you're never really going to do the wrong thing in TaxDome. Everything is correctable, right?
And then I have a manager review stage. I probably won't change this. I'll keep it as is. I'll just make it that my job assignee is based on who's assigned as the manager role. That way, when the manager comes in, they can just look at one thing to see what they have to do. Then I have on my corporations, I have a client confirmation where they review the financial statements. Once that's done, it goes to my finalizing the return. This is where, depending on if it's individual or corporation, different things are done, like printing the returns, printing the financial statements, sending the invoices, all those kinds of things are done.
Right.
Once that's done, another stage for basically the client, review the return again. Even though they've reviewed it already, I want them to look at it before they sign it.
Yeah, it makes sense because, then they'll come back and say, that was wrong.
Yeah.
And well, you signed it. You
And
didn't
then
take a look at it.
as part of this process here I upload the documents to TaxCycle. We tag the ones that need to be signed with where they need to be signed. We confirm the signatures and payments. We send an email basically. Oh, and this one we're actually sending an email, not a message in TaxDome, because there's nothing personal. It's just saying your tax return is done. Check the portal to see it. And again, it's assigned to a person. Then once we've confirmed that we have it's paid for, it's signed, it goes into our e-filing section. Once it's e-filed, it flips over to the download the notice of assessment, which is the document we get after CRA, or I'm not sure what happens in the States, but I assume you get some sort of confirmation that they've accepted the tax
That's
return.
right.
Because
Yeah,
you
there's
filed it doesn't mean they've accepted it. So,
that's right. It's exactly the same process. I believe there is,
yeah.
either accepted or rejected.
Yeah, so basically we download the notice of assessment. Once that's done, we upload that to their portal. They can get it on CRA's website, but some people just like to have one place where if the bank wants it, everything is there for them. Then we send them an email that the notice of assessment is available for them. Once that's done, it automatically moves them to the feedback. I create an organizer that has a feedback form. Based on whether they are a corporation or an individual, and then the task to review it. And then once that's all done, we go to the final stage stage conditions, which update client-facing status to done, and then update the job assignees to remove everybody, and then change them, add the returning client, and remove the new client, so
Great.
that next
So
year they get in the right track.
there you go. Perfect. Yeah, and they don't have to repeat maybe things that or see
Yeah,
messages that don't belong to them,
yeah.
right?
And then
Um,
I've also created, we won't go through them all, but I've also created other ones here. Like this is my request one, where it's basically information gathering, reviewing information, waiting for the client, waiting for CRA, because most questions are to do with their tax return.
right.
Send the response to the client and then complete. That way, everything's just there, that all my questions that aren't related to a specific job are there. I have a different one for bookkeeping, for payroll processing, for prospecting and onboarding. This is where I'll get their initial questions, what they're looking for, have a meeting with them, gather information. And I've used tags in this one as well.
And
To
you create you create an account for them even though they're prospects, right?
I usually do, yeah, because I can always delete it later.
That's right.
And again, it's one place for everything. And it also proves to me they know how to use the portal when I'm bringing on a new client. Because I have existing clients that want to do everything paper, but my new clients, I'm gearing them, we're automated. We're doing like, if you can't figure this out, maybe we're not a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have, some clients that I've onboarded in the last couple of months that
Yeah.
actually are going down that route, right?
Yeah.
We're all paper based, we're all digitally based moving forward. So that's what it is. And, yeah, like you said, we might not be a good fit otherwise.
So
There's there,
if they can't figure this out, pretty good chance they're not a good fit.
that's right.
Um, everyone drops into the first stage vet prospect for fit. Once that's done, if they are, that's when I start tagging them. I'll tag them for onboarding if they're a corporation, if we're doing a year end for them, if they're an individual, if they need bookkeeping, if they, and basically all my different stages are, I have like 6 or 7 different individual information gathering based on what they are. Are they an individual? Are they a business? Are they a corporation? What are we
Right.
doing for them? Setting up appointments, not interested after all the fact if they're not interested, and then completed, removing the onboarding, adding the new client tag. And the reason I do that is because I want to ask different questions based on the type of client they are. If they're taking bookkeeping, I need different information than if they're just a corporation that I'm doing a year end for. Or if they're an individual, I need less information than if they're an individual with a small business. I need different
Right.
information. So that way, I've gotten my prospect to onboarding. If all of a sudden they're not a fit, I still keep them in there because every once in a while, I'll reach back out to them. We weren't a fit. How are things going? Is everything working fine? Because you never know. Just because they weren't a fit now doesn't mean
That's
they're
right.
not a fit later. I still got that, and they know who I am. And I don't try to resell them. I'll just go, hey, just checking in. How's business going? How are things going? Is everything working out over it? Fantastic. Or why not? That way that's why I decided to put them in, even though yes, it does add to the number of clients or number of records in there. But that way I can go, who's everyone that is tagged either not interested or not a fit? Because I've got tags for those.
That's right.
So that way, because when I do when I'm adding things, I make sure they don't have one of those tags too, because I don't
That's
want to
true.
add a job to someone who wasn't a fit, and because then that confuses them.
Right. And plus, you can come back to this pipeline and just look at who's sitting there, right?
Yeah,
Like who's sitting and not a fit.
yeah,
Even if it was 3 months ago, like you mentioned, you can just reach out and see, if anything's changed. Maybe there was a simple thing that they needed to do in order for them to be a fit with you,
yeah.
a document that they needed, or a certification for a business that they needed for them to be officially
Or maybe I was going to be
corporation.
too expensive for them.
Yeah.
But now they're way busier, and the person they picked that was cheaper isn't doing enough for them. You just never know.
Yes,
You
that's
never
exactly
know.
it. Great. Well, thank you for showing us, the way you've set up your pipelines. Hopefully, this can help, some of our viewers understand just the different ways TaxDome can be utilized, like in more of an advanced way, because the way you have everything set up is a little bit more advanced, right?
Yes.
So, in in that sense, looking at what others have created
Mhm.
using the tools that everybody has had. I mean, you didn't get any special tools. You have the same tools
Nope.
that everybody has right now. And you've created this really ideal way of, making TaxDome work for you instead of you work for TaxDome,
Yeah.
right?
Run.
Um,
If you're copying an organizer from an American version and you live in a country that has letters in your zip or postal code, make sure you change it to text versus number.
oh,
Because I
that's
had a ton of people say, I can't give you my postal code because it only accepts numbers because I just copied, changed the name of it, but forgot to change the type of field it was.
Oh, you know what? That's very, very important to understand, especially for, our clients out
Yes.
of the US, right?
Yeah.
And let me
I can
actually,
understand why the American one has that because you don't want people adding numbers or letters into it. But if you're outside of the United States, like Canada has letters in their postal codes, England has letters in their postal codes, just make sure you do that so that your clients don't go, I cannot give you my postal code because.
right, exactly. And let's take a look at how that looks like. For example, um,
An organizer.
let's do this tax preparation here. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's in an organizer.
And where are they? Organizers. Here we go. Let's open up this individual.
An
So
address.
looking at,
It's the next one over. It's the next one, the next page.
it's the next section, right? The address. All right. So here we go. This is right now a
Nope.
number entry,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, this is something
You have
that,
to delete it and add one, but I didn't. And I had a few people going, I can't give it to you. So, and it sort of makes you look like you don't know what you're doing.
right. And in this case, it's like postal code,
Yeah.
right? That's the correct verbiage maybe for other countries.
Yeah.
And like he mentioned, text entry will allow for you to do letters, dashes, everything's
Yeah.
mixed together. But if you say that it should only be a number, then it will give you an error and say, hey, this should be a number. It shouldn't have an O or a Z or a letter in here, right? So what you would do is just delete this guy and then, name it however you would like to name it. Just make sure it's a text entry.
Yep.
So text entry versus anything else. Like when you click on add question, you have various ways of adding answers. It can be a text entry, which could be open to anything. Or you want somebody to provide a specific email address. And in case they add a space after the at, TaxDome is going to say, hey, that's not valid. I need an email address with the correct formatting, right? So that's why it's important to understand this, but that's a really good
Yeah,
call out.
that was just one of the things that tripped me up. Like changing the names of everything, not an issue, but I never thought going, oh yeah, they probably just have all zero or all numbers versus having letters in there as well. So
Yeah, no, that's really, really great. I didn't even think of that actually. So great pointing that out. All
and
right.
then with my organizers, I just had multiple. If they answer it this way, ask this next set of questions so that I can send out the same organizer to everybody, but based on what they have, it
With
only asks certain
conditions,
questions.
right. Yeah, conditions are great. Like,
Yeah,
the best example that I could talk about is, are you married? If you say yes, then you have to answer this whole spouse section.
yeah,
If you say no, then you can skip all that, right? And those are called conditions, right? Um, Exploring, the help center, like you can definitely always click on help, type in organizer, and look at all of our videos that show you exactly how all of these things work. How do I set up the conditions, and how are they functional? Please utilize the help center so it can help you understand the setup. Even though it's pretty intuitive, some of these conditions you need to kind of understand it a little bit more. So it's nice to go into the help center and look at some of the short videos. They're pretty clear and the instructions are pretty clear. It's just you have to sit there and kind of understand it.
yeah. If
And
you
if
can
you,
do Google Forms, you can do this. It's as
oh
simple
yeah,
as that. So
yeah, exactly. It's really simple to use. The ones that are pre-made are nice because they already have conditions built in. But if you want to build conditions from scratch, if you want to build an organizer from scratch, you are more than welcome to do that. You obviously won't have, all of these questions. Like, for example, I have these. This is just a sample that I used in order to obtain, or kind of to demo, the CRM pulling. So earlier we were talking about a feature that says once they fill this out, I can bring this over to TaxDome CRM, right? So if I ask them their street address, in the settings here, you toggle on the sync to CRM, and then you tell TaxDome what field needs to be filled out. So if in the contact field of, the contacts, that's what needs to be updated, great. If you need to update, I don't know if there's a company address you need to update that, perfect. But in this case, it's just a street address for the contact. So that's what I select, and that's what's going to match this. There will be a button called, bring over to CRM once I actually have a client fill this out. So if the zip code changes, again, I want to make sure that the zip code is selected, so that when I do get a new zip code, I click on one button and it'll automatically update that for me. So again, this is called the syncing data to CRM, and this is really the settings that you want to work on before you send out the organizer, right? So I'm sure you did that as well, right?
I did that, and you don't have to select everything either.
Yeah,
Even if
exactly.
it says sync, you can tell it, well, don't sync this or don't sync that, or
Yeah, it's only what you want. I mean, you can have custom fields. Remember, we've talked
yeah,
about custom fields. Custom fields are maybe the EIN number changed for the business, and this is a business organizer, right? And you want that to be updated or something like that. Great, you can do that. You can pretty much synchronize any of the fields that are available in either the contact or even some of the account level, and it just makes things so much easier for at least the address.
oh,
If the
absolutely.
address changed before in taxing, we'd had to manually update it, which can be a little bit of a headache, but now it's just going to be really easy to do with the touch of a button.
Yeah.
So, and I want to, although I haven't sent any of these formally, let me show you how it'll look like. This is how it looks like. Sync to CRM. Whatever questions need to be synced to CRM, you'll click on this here and it'll sync them for you. So in this case, I want to sync some of these fields like the street address, right? And this is how it's going to show up for you. And then you can just sync everything here. So this button here is going to be your friend. This is what you'll see when something is answered. Okay, so if you're having trouble, like, where is this button? I don't see it. This is actually when, after you have sent that over to your clients, this is where you will see it. All right, so I want to just briefly, to conclude our session, just want to show clients how to test a pipeline quickly, right? So let's go to our workflow and then pipeline. And I'm going to go to this pipeline here. How do I test a pipeline? We already have it all set up, right? We have all these conditions. We have, all of these tasks that need to be completed. How do I test that out? So adding a job. A lot of clients, believe it or not, after they take all of these trainings and they know, how to set the pipeline up, they're like, now I don't know what to do. I forgot what is a job, right? And I can completely understand that because there's just so much to learn that you just, stumble upon what the heck. How do I start now? Like, how do I get started with my clients, right? Well, first of all, if you're in this view, you can click on add job and then select the account. You can select multiple accounts and you can search for them as well, right? But in this case, let's go ahead and select Fab LLC, just for example's sake, even though this is an individual tax return, right? So let me cancel this out, and I'm going to delete this job because we're just testing. Remember, you can click on this corner button and you'll have this top menu. I never suggest to delete, but because this is just a test, I will delete. I always suggest to archive instead, okay? Even if you didn't complete the job for a client, do an archive so you can keep a record. In this case, it's just a test. This is the only time where I'm actually going to delete. All right. So we have the job that we create. This is how we get started. Before this, though, when you are testing, you want to open up another page, whether it's another browser or an incognito window or a private window, and you want to log in to that test account. Okay, that way you know exactly what you're getting into. So what does that mean? I'm going to be able to see the client facing status, right? I'm going to be able to see what I need to sign or what I need to complete. So that's the first thing that I can suggest. Open up another window, or even on your phone, log into that test account on your phone like if you were that client. So I'm going to select this account. And remember, job templates are our best friend. It automatically fills out the form for us, right? So we already talked about that in previous webinars. And job templates, I'm sure you've utilized them as well in your work. Is that correct, Leonard?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it just makes things so much easier because I mean, I don't need to worry about anything other than who does this need to be assigned to, right? Maybe I don't even need to worry about this because I already have role-based assignment. So maybe I can leave this blank, right? And just depend on the role assignment. So I'm going to create this job, and it's asking me, do you want all of these things to happen? Because these are actions that you generated. And yes, I do, right? I already know that they either have a new client tag or a returning client tag. So I'm going to hit move. All right, so I have the first things here that have been issued. Let's see here. I'm going to close this out just so I can filter, and then I'm just going to filter my account. Because when you're testing, you want to make sure that you only see that account and only that account, right? So the client facing status is here. That's the first thing that you want to test out. So just because I'm not logged in now, I want to show you that when you open the account, even if you don't necessarily have the testing open, if you click on info, you'll be able to log in as read only. And Leonard, have you utilized this before, the
Yes, I
login?
have.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. So when you do that, you can see the jobs that are active. Obviously, I have many jobs for this particular account, and you can see them up here. Each status is a different job, right? So this is what your client can see. I know this is for, a tax return, and this is for 2023. I'm still not done with 2023. And this is for something else that I'm working on, right? So all of these things your client will be able to see. And this is the status. Hey, we're starting soon. That's what I set up. That's how I know that everything's good to go, that this testing is actually functional, right? So that's it. We have this pending engagement letter that needs to be signed. And if you look at the proposal section, this was sent today, right? And this needs to be signed so that the client needs to log in here and sign this. So once they sign it, this is going to say complete. And this little triangle says that the auto move is going to happen. So that's how we know that it's functional, because once they sign, the auto move will happen automatically, right? So essentially the testing here is you going into the account and fulfilling that. Like, for example, right now, I need to make sure that that is actually signed. And let me actually do it on my end here. I'm going to do it on the phone app just because I already have this signed in. And I want to show you that this is what you want to do when you are testing. And when you were testing out your account, were you doing that same thing, Leonard? Were you logging in as if you were a client?
Yeah, I just made a test account basically and ran all of my processes through it, opened up an incognito window, logged in as that test account, did the signing, did the answering of questions, just to make sure that it all worked. Especially after I mistakenly did the questionnaire part wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's
I didn't test that part out. Why would I think to do that? But
no, I think that's the best way to do it. And whoops, I keep signing into my real account instead of my client's account. Let me try one more time. All right, so I am logged in, and I'm going to share that window just so you see it. I am logged in here, and this was the one that was just sent over to me. This is how it's going to look like on the client's end, right? So I have to scroll all the way down. I know this verbiage is really long. Remember, you can copy and paste your own verbiage or use the one that TaxDome has. Either way is fine. And in this case, I'm going to sign. Perfect. So going back to this portal, there was something that was completed, which was the organizer, right? And oops, I need to log in again. And the reason why I did that is because I was still under the view only, the view of the client. So I'm just going to go back to workflow and look at this pipeline. Notice that the filter is still here. Okay, so I'm still filtering only this. So if I open this up, here it is signed. Now in this particular case, I am actually invoicing the client, right? So once the invoice is paid, then it will move to the next stage. So the invoice in this case, I'm going to open it here, and yeah, this invoice needs to get paid. And I'm going to do an offline payment because the offline payment means that they probably paid me in cash, which they actually did. So I'm going to hit save just so I could demo you what this looks like. So now that they actually paid their deposit and they signed the proposal or engagement letter, however you want to call it, it automatically moved to the next stage. So this is how sequentially you're going to do the testing. You're going to see what's the next thing here. Well, there's an organizer that was sent apparently, and that organizer should now be in the client view. So you go back into here, you look into the organizer. This was just sent today, right? And you open that up, and remember, I only had 2 questions, so I'm just going to write whatever on here just to submit. All right. So now that I submitted, I'm going to come back into TaxDome, and I'm just going to have it refresh on its own, and it moved automatically because what was pending here was a proposal and a deposit that was paid. It automatically moved to an organizer. The organizer says send the short version to my returning clients, send the long version to new clients. I'm a returning client, so that's why I got the short version. Now we're in prep. And we open up again the job to see the task. Who was it assigned to? Catherine was assigned. That's exactly who this needs to go to because she is a preparer, right, for this account. So once she's done with her task, we're going to hit save and exit. And it actually skipped these and moved to the preparation section. Why? Because these are stages that have very specific tags. So if we're not missing anything or need an extension, these will be skipped, right? So this means that when you're on this stage here, you actually need to say, well, if they are really missing something, we have to tag the account missing and complete the task, right? So now we can complete the task. And it should move to the missing info, right? So this is the way that you would do it in case you are using these stages. Otherwise, if you are sitting here, you can use this missing information status and have it be sitting here as long as it needs to be sitting here. And then once they give you the information that you need, like maybe I need to send a client request, right? If I send a client request, this is where I will send it and, need that doc. And it's nice to kind of, I know we've reviewed this, but looking at it a couple of times will kind of help you understand how this is going to be utilized. In the US, a W-2 is, a standard document that you might be missing, right? So I'm going to hit send. And there we go. We have this client request set. We're just going to sit here and wait for the client. Once the client submits, it's going to turn into active, and then we can keep going, right? We can keep going in each stage. So my suggestion again is make sure that whoever is assigned to the tasks, and let's go to manager review, is the person that needs to be assigned. So I'm moving it here manually, and some of these tasks here say that they belong to this person. If I know that's correct, we can keep it that way. And this, for example, doesn't have an assignee, so I know that this in the future needs to have somebody that needs to be assigned to it. So how do you figure out if something's not working how it should? Why is it not moving forward, right? Well, you always take a look at your tasks and things that are pending. Right now, this is keeping the pipeline from moving to the next stage. We need this information from the client. Once this information is received, then TaxDome will keep pushing it to the next stage. And this is, again, the testing that you're going to do. You're going to make sure that everything, like for example, this wasn't assigned to anybody and it should be, right? So how do I correct that? I actually should be opening up a new tab. And I need to go into my templates and my task templates. And this task that doesn't have anybody assigned to it, it's called 1040 tax prep post. And let me look at that. I can search for it here. It's probably this one here. Yeah. So if I open this up, that's why I don't have anybody assigned to it, because if I didn't have any role-based or any team members assigned. So in this case, I'm going to add my preparer. It's the person that needs to do this. And that's how I fix that issue. Now moving forward, when we hit the stage, this particular task will now be officially assigned to whoever it belongs to. I think it's Catherine in this case. And again, these assignees, you want to have somebody assigned, because if you don't, no, it's just going to be a task up in the air flying around, right? And you don't want that, because that's when your team members are going to be like, well, I thought that was done. I didn't get a notification for it. So in this case, if you want to remove a certain task that you no longer need, you can remove it on the fly, and you can reissue tasks to team members, because maybe somebody's out sick and you need to reassign it. Is that something that could potentially happen with you, Leonard? That somebody's out sick or
Probably not at this point, because it's only me doing this work. But
oh, gotcha. But eventually,
yes,
that could
eventually
potentially
somebody
be
will be
something
able
to do. So, like I mentioned, this testing is really critical for you to do. It's just about going from stage to stage and making sure that things are functional, right? And you always want to come back to this view of, um, the client view. Let me see, hopefully you can see that. This is my, I'm the client here. And I want to make sure, that, I have paid whatever I need to pay. Obviously, you'll never have a client that has credits of $40,000, but I owe $3,000 on here, right? And your client might owe $150, whatever it may be. They will be able to see this here. They will be able to see all of the tasks that they need to complete, organizers, invoices that they need to pay. So by doing the testing, you should be seeing the statuses change. You should be seeing, the right organizers being issued. You probably see a little bit of clutter with me, because I've sent many, many things over and over. And using a test account, feel free to send yourself a million things. That's the best part of having a test account. You can play back and forth with things that, like Leonard figured out that by doing all of this testing, that some of the fields needed to be a text versus a number, or maybe you don't feel right about sending your client a message because you're already sending them a client-facing status. This is where you can figure out if you're bombarding your client or not, right? All right, so I'm going to conclude with that, and I'm going to go back to some final questions, and then we are ready to end the session. All right, so let's go to our final questions here, and then we'll do our recap. So what percentage of clients can expect to use a mobile app for communication? What do you think, Leonard? Is that
That's how
something
old your
that,
clientele is.
yeah, believe it or not, I've had so many comments from clients that say, I can't believe my, 70-year-old clients are activating their stuff versus my 30-year-olds that are not and are not, so it's kind of surprising to see sometimes that, some of the older crowd can be tech savvy in this portal because it's pretty intuitive. I know sometimes it might not be intuitive for all human beings out there, but a, a- I think a good percentage of, I don't know, I could throw out a ballpark out there about 70 to 80% of clients really do utilize the app, while they're still paper-based clients that remain around 20 to 30%. And these are stats that I'm giving you from my own personal experience. I'm not really grabbing them from official numbers, but this is what I've, after of onboarding many clients, that's around the number that about 50 to 70% of the accounts really are utilizing the app itself. So while they may use a web-based portal, um, you know you'll see in your client list who is downloading and who is viewing the app. So right when you hit peak season there, Leonard, I think you'll be able to see that as well on your end. And all you have to do is go to clients, and then you'll see those fields. It's
Yeah.
called app login, and the other one is called last login. So you can see both of those in there. All right, next question. Is there a point in recording invoices and payments to TaxDome if I don't bill my clients through it? Good question. Leonard, do you invoice through TaxDome, or will you be invoicing through TaxDome?
I am, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Um, in the case of clients invoicing outside of TaxDome, which you may. I have clients using QuickBooks Online, which they might not this season use TaxDome for the billing. They might keep it outside for now. I've had a handful of clients that are going to do that just because they're so near tax season. They don't want to move too quickly. But why would you want to record them in TaxDome as well? Well, because you want to do that record keeping and be able to generate those reports that we talked about earlier, right? That way you can quickly look up who's paid you, what the revenue is in the last 6 months or in the last month, or according by team member, or according by tag, whatever you want to generate. You want to keep track of it, even if it's an offline payment. I just demoed an offline payment earlier, so that's the way that you want to move forward with it, right?
Yeah, it helps with the reporting, basically.
Yeah, exactly. The reporting would be critical. If you release a new feature, how do I test them in my pipeline without messing up my workflow for clients that are already in there? So again, you want to use a test account to do that, right? And you want to do that potentially in a whole different pipeline, so that you really don't mess up the clients that you're in there. Because if you add a stage or add things, and if your client is about to hit that stage, they will be affected if you hit that save button, right? So test a new feature out by creating maybe a temporary pipeline and test it out that way. with the test account. That's the best way to do it, and just kind of fool around with it, play around with it so you can have a good grasp of the new features. Are there always ways to prevent my clients from uploading documents to the wrong folders? Well, number one, if you send an organizer, you know, the folders will be there already. They can only upload to one folder as of now, unless you add many, many subfolders. It's just a client uploaded documents folder, but I'm going to ask what your best practice or suggestion is, Leonard, but I could suggest something that if you know you have some clients that are really kind of like not tech savvy, you can probably rename a folder or two and call it upload here,
Yeah.
or this is the folder, or like change the wording for that specific client. I think
I've
again,
got the years there, but some do. Most will pick the right folder, but there's the odd one that is just sitting in the base folder, and we just end up moving it.
right, right. Yeah, it's not a big deal if, your
No.
client just throws it into the unsorted folder or whatever that may happen. You
Yeah.
can always move it, and it's really simple to do.
Yeah.
So don't think that it's going to be a headache for you if they happen to put it in the wrong folder.
No, vast majority will pick the year it belongs to and go from there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if they're this person in society working and making money, hopefully they can identify, the right folder for the right year. So, but that's a good question to ask. It can be a common issue. All right. Well, just want to recap. We talked about how to really edit a pipeline. We've already done that, but doing it in a more detailed way of using advanced features such as tagging, making sure that some of the steps that are taking are really, really tailored with automations that are triggered by tags, right?
Mhm.
We talked about advanced functions like new features that will require you to potentially make your pipeline smaller, right? Like statuses, job statuses are really, really going to be nice to utilize. So if you can start utilizing them now as you're setting up your pipelines and you're testing them, use them, because it might be better for you to use them than get used to you know, using stages. But
Yeah.
again, the features are there for you. We're just showing you the broad way of using TaxDome so that you can choose what is going to be
Yeah.
best for
Either
you.
way works. It's just what works for you.
Yes, absolutely. Um, and like I mentioned, and I'll say it over and over, Taxome is this big, big template that you will always tailor to your needs. So this is going to be really great for you to keep modifying in the future. So advanced workflows, we also talked about, you know, assigning using roles. That roles is going to save not only Leonard some time too for maybe the next tax season, but you all that are setting this up, role based auto assignment is going to be really helpful, especially for bigger teams, right? And testing and optimizing the pipeline, by testing, you're going to catch those errors like, oh, this wasn't assigned to the right person. I need to correct the template. Oh, I didn't even assign, a reviewer for my test account. So that's why nobody's getting assigned to it, right? So those are the small tests that you want to do. You want to make sure that the right notifications are getting to your client, right? If you have, for example, a signature request, how does that email look like, right? What does that email say when they're getting notified about a signature request? You
Yeah.
need to get familiar with all of that before you add jobs, because if you don't go through a pipeline as a client yourself, you won't really know the client experience, right? And if, did I send the right email at the end of everything, thanking the client for their business? Do I want to ask them for a Google review or something like that, right? So those are all of the things that you want to make sure you catch by putting a test account from beginning to the end of the pipeline.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining, Leonard. I think some of your insights are really, really helpful. We do have additional resources that everybody can utilize. Help Center, we have more webinars. We'll have more webinars later on in the year. As we move forward with highlighting new features, that we're always adding new features, by the way, which, as you've noticed, Leonard, will make your pipeline faster and easier as you move forward. All right. Well, again, thank you, Leonard. It was really, really a pleasure to have you today. The way you have set up your pipeline is really amazing. And you really amazed me because when we were onboarding you in TaxDome, you really got the grasp of how to use the automations. And, it's one of the reasons why we wanted to ask you to show off your skills. So hopefully everybody learned a little bit from you. And again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Not a problem. Anytime.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.